but thank you. We'll come back and ask questions. Yes, let's, Roxana?
Yes, my name is Roxanne Villasenor.
Thank you.
My name's Roxanne Villasenor. I am currently a principal newly appointed to Westfield Village Elementary School in the Washington Unified School District. Prior to this, I have served as the communities of the South Sacramento, Oak Park, and now Washington Unified Communities as teacher of a high school and the subjects of algebra, health, and biology, and middle school math and science. My undergrad degree was a BA in biology, and I obtained that degree out of state. And so when pursuing my teaching credential, returning to California, the barriers were great. If you obtained your BA in California in a certain content area, you didn't have to take certain assessments prior to entering or pursuing your teaching credentialing program. But having left California, obtained my BA and returned, there were some obstacles to overcome prior to obtaining my credential, which I was able to successfully do. I'm now sitting in my 16th year of education as now a principal. I've had a variety of supervisory roles in departments and had the opportunity to work heavily within the special education department from a general teacher's perspective or general education perspective. So my perspective is that site level and personal experiences. As an administrator, I have learned that working with teachers to support them through their professional learning, through the resources provided, connecting them. I was successful in connecting families and students with the schools, breaking down barriers, and so creating the opportunities that allowed the teachers to understand families and vice versa, and helping families understand systems that could be sometimes daunting. So I think with things that I have seen, strategies to recruit and retain teachers, first understanding the barriers. We have a diverse group of students that are not successful in our educational system. Why would they decide to pursue education as a career choice when it was something that they were not welcomed or faced barriers greatly? Nor do they see themselves represented in the teachers that are providing service to them. The college debt versus educator salary, the teacher demands have increased. In addition to this, the levels of support as it relates to administration at local levels, mentorship and inconsistencies in the teacher preparation programs. And recognizing, as it was mentioned earlier, that being an educator is a lifestyle. It's a commitment that you have to be willing to be humbled by how valuable you are and impacting you are to our youth, and recognizing the acceptance of responsibility in what you do today matters tomorrow in our future, and that's a huge responsibility. And then the emotional levels of concern for student success and safety, and the social emotional factors or the basic needs that are not being met could be very overwhelming. So recognizing that these are factors that could become barriers, especially with the recession and now that we're recovering from this, looking at ways to advertise and market the profession in a way that appeals to the diverse population, the millennials, and enticing and encouraging those that are perhaps credentialed or earning single subject credentials through their BAs in biology, sociology, communication, making them specialists in their fields without the huge barriers and high levels of support. Having early exposure to students through career pathways in school. We have academies through CTE. I have not seen one that is focused on education, and I find it interesting that as educators, we're not taking a stance to promote and highlight and advertise the profession that you have committed and invested yourself in. Incentivizing the profession. Creating incentives for students who return to their communities to serve as an educator and administrator. I was fortunate enough to serve the last 6 years as an administrator at the school that I graduated from. And prior to that, 3 years, the middle school that the school's students fed into. There were no incentives, but there was this great gratification and connectedness with the community that left me purpose and motivation and drive to be successful and to connect students to the school. And again, it gave me the advantage to connect with families on a different level through difficult situations, and recognizing that my my purpose was to make the best interest and decisions that were in their students' best interest, and there was trust and confidence given there. And then recognizing the struggles that I had grown with family, friends close to me due to the setting that I grew up in the school that I was now serving, recognizing those struggles and recognizing those angry conversations as ones that sometimes teachers or administrators shy away from as the cry for additional support. So that need for diversity training and cultural awareness of the communities you are serving is definitely a need to be embedded in teaching credentialing programs if you are serving a high poverty and high diverse setting. Recruiting college students who are in various stages of their degree completions. You have junior college students who are looking to explore potential avenues for career options. You have biology degrees, sociology, where BAs are not enough. You need a secondary credential, whether it's master's or your doctorate, to specialize in that field, and education could be one that's considered as an option for those that are looking to explore potential career options. And as we know, that those minds change from when you first enter to when you leave. Provide monetary incentives for communities in need, perhaps differential pay in the areas of math and science and special education, and dollar values in tuition reimbursement could be a certain dollar figure to years of service, and making housing available within the community that educators have been selected to serve, making living affordable. In West Sacramento, the cost of living, because it's an up-and-coming community, is very difficult for families to purchase their first homes. And I have a staff, there's one in particular who is sharing her struggles in looking for housing in her area, and she wants to work in a place close to home in a community that she has grown up in and loves, and cannot find a home and is currently living with her mom until she can save enough. The support and mentorship to develop the educators. The BITSA programs are, from what I have observed, not uniformed in nature from district to district, and not necessarily funded in the same way or given the same level of attention. An emphasis with mentorship as it relates to special ed programs and special students with disabilities, foster youth populations, and EL populations. Perhaps even the opportunity to explore through their credentialing program what it would be like to be a student who struggles, an EL student, a student with disabilities, a student who has a historical failure or experiences historically failure in education, and what their challenges are and how they've decided to cope, and what supports are available to them, and what teachers can do from providing the compassion and empathy for that student. More exposure for special education program teachers, perhaps allow an internship for their high level of exposure to the job before completing the program. It's one of our most needy populations, and intensive needs for students, and bringing them up to grade level and making them college ready, or giving college as a choice. I think at this point we're just struggling with high school completion. And building transitionary opportunities for those interested in entering the profession. Increased internship opportunities have been mentioned, pipeline programs for teachers to work while earning their credentials. It's very difficult in this day and age to expect teachers who have gone through their undergrad and perhaps now at their master's in teaching credentialing programs to sacrifice a whole semester without pay to earn their teaching credentialing, only to then accrue an increased amount of college debt and a salary that may not match, and not many tuition reimbursement opportunities for them. A paraeducator to teacher pathway, so that those that are pursuing education are well informed of the setting, the resources, or perhaps given the opportunity to explore the settings that they're good or not so good with. I have teachers who I've evaluated who perhaps they would be successful in more affluent settings, but working with the students in the high poverty settings, they're not able to connect or don't have enough shared experiences and levels of understanding of where they're coming from and personalize it. So this would give a person an opportunity before fully committing themselves and investing to have a perspective before an introduction. And with the current teacher shortage, while it's not favorable perhaps, but having substitutes that are allowed to sub beyond the 30 days. I currently have 47%. I've walked into a site, high poverty rate, over 90%, and I have 47% of my staff are probationary or temporary status teachers. And the ones that have substitutes in the position, there have been a couple where I feel are tremendous and effective, and I know that they're learning and working to obtain their credentialing program, but after 30 days, I cannot allow them to continue to be in the setting, and so now I risk a vacancy for a sub because there is a deficiency in teacher shortage. I risk a sub who is going to be ineffective, has to relearn the students, reconnect and rebuild relationships, rather than continue forward with what they've established and their participation in our professional learning, the culture of the connection with the staff that has provided support, and any mentorship arrangements that have been provided now have to be ended and start new. And then we do this until we fill that vacancy. But as you know, the hope for this second grade class, I fear for what the remainder of this year will look like for them under those circumstances. And then just extend the tenure requirements. 2 years is not enough. I have teachers who I feel at 1 year, perhaps there's some personal experiences that shape the way that they teach or shape the way they've internalized and personalized their profession and their teaching craft, which they're entitled to. Teachers' creativity, interpretation, and implementation, providing their following standards, is great. But if that were the second year and I was unsure of the risk for not continuing to produce results or being successful with students, I would have to release them for fear of tenuring a teacher that is not effective. Giving me an additional year or 2 years would give me more time to support the teacher, to work with the teacher, and help them through those. And perhaps even expanding the special education credential to allow secondary RSP teachers to provide intervention to students who are reading at the intervention significantly below grade level. So I have high school students who have been reading at the 3rd grade level historically, and those, of course, are your frequent flyers. But perhaps the trained specialist, special education reading intervention specialist, could provide support and instruction to that student without reclassifying or placing them in a sheltered class, and then exposing your special education students to general ed students in curriculum that would be a least restrictive setting for them. And then foreign language credentials, requiring teachers to be trained and authorized to support EL language support to EL students for language acquisition. Involve them in the process of supporting our students in acquiring mastery in the language arts. So, and strategies to support teachers in the classroom. As a site administrator, I have needed mentorship myself. I have needed guidance and continued professional development. I have not necessarily had one built into the structure, but I sought it out through CALSA and AXA to continue to grow myself to support teachers. So I agree, becoming an effective leader will have great implications and supports to your new teachers and veteran teachers. Letting teachers, being transparent, maintaining open dialogue, building capacity within your staff, follow through, collaboration, classroom visitations, and knowing how to provide feedback that is crucial and honest and constructive, providing demo supports, necessary resources. That could be time, that could be materials, and that could be just even with the building facilities and advocating for your sites and working with your districts.
We have a time limit.
Okay.
Thank you, Roxana. And I would, if you have your written responses, I'd like you to add them. You just give them to the staff and we can add them to our packet here. Mr. Riley.
Hello. So I'll talk quickly at a macro level and then move specifically to what we're doing in Elk Grove. My name is David Riley. I'm the Associate Superintendent for Human Resources for Elk Grove Unified. I'm new to Elk Grove as of June this past year, and I'll speak a little bit about my experiences in the Bay Area because I do believe this teacher shortage and this crisis is going to affect districts differently. And, I know many people know this, but in terms of, systematic change, macro speaking, quite frankly, until we address the disparities in the funding structure, the differences between basic aid districts and revenue limit districts. I reflect on my experience in the Bay Area where you take a smaller school district on the coast of Half Moon Bay, like Cabrillo Unified, and compare that to the funding of Sequoia Union High School District, was a basic aid. Obviously, the teacher shortage is going to affect that smaller district in a much more significant and impactful way than your more affluent district. So until we address some of those disparities, we're kind of left here in a discussion which is largely discussing symptoms of a larger problem. So at some point we need to dig deeper into those issues. But to move more to the micro and what we're doing specifically in Elk Grove, I'll start with a caveat. One is to just be careful of the data that you're looking at. Elk Grove was identified as a potential ideal participant in this because I understand that the researchers looked at the year 13-14. They were looking for the largest school districts in California who had the highest percentages of emergency permits. You have to look at that concurrently with some of the new unfunded mandates out there. In 2011, there was an added authorization required for special education teachers in autism spectrum disorders. So Elk Grove, when it was under the audit by the Sacramento County Office of Ed in 13-14, we had 197 of our special education teachers non-compliant or misassigned, because they didn't have that yet. It came out of the blue, it was unfunded, and the district was still negotiating with its union as to, is the district gonna pay for this or the teacher's gonna pay for this? So what the district did, so that it wasn't grossly out of compliance, is it got those emergency permits for those 197 teachers. That put us over the 4% threshold. So on appearances, if you're not digging deeper, peeling the onion, it looks like Elk Grove is really in crisis. Elk Grove is probably better positioned because the cost of living here is still affordable for teachers. In fact, it's what attracted me to this area. Even as the third top earner in my district in the Bay Area, I could no longer afford to raise a family in the Bay Area. So that's a reality. So it's going to affect, the teacher shortage is going to affect some of those Bay Area communities more so than the Sacramento area. So in reality, in this current school year, 15-16, we have 3,400 teachers in Elk Grove Unified. We have 16 internships, and we have 28 emergency permits. Of the 28, 20 of them are in the field of special education. I am very concerned about the future of special education. We have currently 8.5 unfilled special education spots, which means we have a myriad of teachers who are picking up, they're working over 1.0. It's not an ideal situation. We have program specialists who should be mentoring and evaluating teachers and monitoring programs who are conducting IEP meetings, doing case management so that we're not legally out of compliance. So I'll get to the nitty-gritty micro of some things that we're doing. When I arrived at Elk Grove Unified and studying the teacher's contract, I discovered a bit of an odd duck in that Elk Grove Unified has not been able to go out and offer teachers from the outside contracts until June. Where I'm from, you're doing emergency hires in June. Why is that? Because the collective bargaining agreement was so strong in favor of the existing teachers that outside hiring couldn't happen until June because it had to go through 3 rounds of transfer rounds where existing teachers were looking around the district to see where they wanted to go. Typically, that migration goes from our northern Title I impoverished schools to our southern, more affluent schools. So who are the kids who feel the teacher shortage the most? Our kids of greatest need. So what we did, first order of business, is, and fortunately, our teachers union was very open to these negotiations. We have a 1-year pilot side letter where we can now offer contracts in March. There's still a transfer process, but it's built in. So now we're better poised to attract teachers in a more timely manner. So that's a big win for Elk Grove. We are looking at fostering partnerships with universities so that we can have our own teacher preparation program. Some of the ideas that we're discussing and contemplating are a hybrid model to mitigate that gap between what was discussed earlier today, that where the university assumes the responsibility for preparing the teacher and then it transfers overnight to the school district. I'm interested in partnering with universities, using our own curriculum professional learning department to offer training to interns. And what we're toying and what I really need is flexibility. I want the ability to offer an intern a part-time contract, say for 40%, so they earn something. And then that remaining 60%, they're going through, in partnership with the university and the school district, they're going through their training and their observations and their coursework. That salary that they earn can help offset the university costs. And, you know, some people were dismissive. I think the legal analysts were somewhat dismissive of the cost. That student debt is real. You know, when you're entering a profession and you're going to make $40,000 out of the gate and you've got double that in student debt or half of that in student debt, you better believe that that's a factor. You know, couple that, we're trying to attract a new generation of millennials who value individuality, autonomy, creativity. And they're already entering a profession where you've got not 2 years to prove yourself, you really have about 17 months to prove yourself, so extremely high stakes. In a recession where we have to do layoffs, you're not looked at as an individual, you're an inception date. When did you start? So seniority-based decisions, that doesn't foster what millennials are looking for. So, you know, all these seniority-based decisions, a short probationary period, and this concept of permanent employment. Does that foster a growth mindset and a constant need for professional development and bettering yourself? Those are some of the bigger, back to the macro, some of the bigger pictures. Other things that we're looking at specifically, because the special ed piece keeps me up at night, is that we're looking to get creative. So what I want to do is survey our 3,400 teachers. If I can find a cohort of 50 teachers who are already fully credentialed, either single subject or multi-subject, and who express an interest, hey, I'm at 10 or 15 years, I kind of want to reinvent myself. I want to get that special ed. I want to co-teach, and I want to do some case management, and I want to, you know, change the way I work and approach education from a different angle. I want to be able to offer those teachers an emergency permit for a year, put them in a position where they're co-teaching and doing some case management, partner with the university, and train them to do so that after a year, they're credentialed to be special education. Because I would rather go out and look for a second grade teacher or even a calculus high school teacher than a case manager in this current climate. So those are some of the sort of, I hate the term out of the box, but those are some of the innovative, creative things that our district is looking at, particularly in regards to special education. We're also looking to seek, our district and our collective bargaining agreement will recognize 10 years of service if you come in from out of state or out of district. We're looking at raising that to 15 years so that we can attract some mid-career folks, perhaps from the Bay Area, who might be looking for a more feasible cost of living, standard of living. That's a little bit of robbing Peter to pay Paul, but hey, you got to do what you got to do. There's other things, CTE pathway. CTE is another exciting thing. Elk Grove will be building 50 new schools, which again keeps me up at night because as the teacher shortage is getting deeper and deeper, we're going to be building 50 new schools in the next 10 years. We have 90,000 homes who are either approved for instruction or under construction. So the kids are coming, the families are coming, and we need more teachers. So those are some of the specific things that Elk Grove has in the pipeline.
Thank you very much. Provocative. Please leave your notes. Carolyn, Ms. Nelson, thank you for joining us.
Well, I just want you to know I'm also a teacher transplant, and because I have actually over my lifetime earned credentials in 4 different states, I'm very familiar with some of the barriers that exist in trying to earn to be able to teach after you've earned a credential somewhere else. The point being that this is a really important topic to me, and I thank you very much, Chairwoman and Senate Education Committee, for providing us the opportunity to give you an overview of the California State University strategies addressing the California's teacher workforce shortage and its current projected shortages all over. CSU prepares approximately 1/2 of the new teachers in California each year. In 2014-15, credentials were awarded to 6,331 teacher graduates. 40% of them were multiple subject teachers, 36% of them were secondary teachers, with nearly half of them science and math teachers, and 24% in special education. But in response to the teacher shortage, CSU launched a system-wide effort in September focused on outreach to CSU students, informing them of their eligibility for the federal TEACH grants and helping them in acquiring these grants to assist them in paying for credential preparation. The grants are $4,000 each year, and they go up to $16,000 for the full preparation program. This effort was made possible by an augmentation to the CSU state budget of $200,000 and because TEACH grants target specific areas of shortage. CSU has shared with policymakers already its positive experience with the Assumption Program of Loans for Education, better known as the APPLE program, and until APPLE was eliminated in the state budget, CSU made it a top priority and used all or most of its allocated warrants and was often given unused warrants from other sectors of the California Student Aid Commission. CSU found that APPLE contributed markedly to undergraduates choosing a teaching career. It increased enrollments in teaching pathways and correlated directly with the APPLE award availability. So to understand CSU's attention to financial aid, it's also important to recognize that almost half of CSU teacher candidates are from low-income families, and financial assistance is a key to their obtaining a credential. In addition, national studies conducted over the past decade have demonstrated that student loan debt deters interested candidates from pursuing teaching. They worry that they may not be able to pay back their student loan debt on a beginning teacher salary. Regarding clinical partnerships, the CSU's teacher preparation programs are grounded in strong university district clinical partnerships. Campuses work closely with nearby districts in identifying teaching fields for which there is district demand and in developing clinical student teaching placements for teacher candidates, many of which lead to hiring by the district upon credential completion. All CSU campuses utilize a co-teaching design, and more than 1/3 use a residency model, making the clinical component of teacher preparation akin to a medical residency. Also, the majority of CSU campuses offer an alternative pathway to a teaching credential through an intern program. In these programs, the teacher candidate receives initial preparation, typically in the summer before the internship, and then serves as the teacher of record, normally earning a full-time teacher's salary as they complete their teaching credential. Districts are allowed to hire interns to fill teacher shortages, and most internships are in math, science, and special education. CSU interns are providing ongoing supervision at their sites. This is not the old model, please understand, of teacher interns where they're just thrown into a classroom. There is a very rigorous commitment of MOU where 180 hours of supervision are given to these interns, where it's shared with district partnerships, and also it is behooving, the district is required to supervise alongside with the university, so they're not on their own, as they were often in the old models. Another alternative pathway is Cal State Teach. It was established in 1999 and is a clinically based teacher education program in which candidates serve as supervised student teachers, residents, or interns at school sites, supported with a robust online program of teacher preparation. It has grown from 245 candidates in fall of 1999 to 846 candidates in the fall of 2015. It received the American Association of Colleges of Teacher Education National Award for Innovative Uses of Technology in 2015. It was designated an APPLE Distinguished Program in the years of 2010 to 11, 2012 to 14, and 2015 to 17. It serves candidates across the state, enabling them to complete requirements for becoming a teacher through online delivery, combined with supervised on-site clinical placements. CSU has been examining a range of options for increasing teacher education enrollments, and since the teacher shortages became evident in particular, CSU is starting to see signs of turnaround in interest in the teaching profession, as others have said. There was an increase of 8% in the applicants to the CSU this year in 2015-16, and the first increase in many years. And the reasons have been discussed by previous speakers. A major issue for the state system at this point is how to accommodate increased enrollments, since funding on virtually all campuses is committed to disciplines that have had robust enrollments during the past several years. Limited growth in enrollment funding is a challenge to campuses. Campuses work to respond to the needs for more teachers by school districts, as they do work to increase their enrollments because of the need of school districts. And because of the significance of the issue, the CSU Chancellor discussed teacher shortages and potential campus responses with CSU presidents in December at the cabinet meeting. 3 strategies were identified as having immediate promise: conducting local supply-demand analyses to ensure teacher preparation is targeted to the highest needs and hiring plans of school districts. Second one, supporting the alignment of teacher credential and master's degree programs. CSU is nearly as large of enrollment for master's programs as it does in the preliminary education teacher credential programs. So if we were able to align these 2 programs to also support BITSA, as already many of our campuses do, it would be able to not only help in the preparation part, but also in the retention part. Promoting the efforts is the third one of education and financial aid to inform students of their eligibility for teach grants and facilitate them in obtaining them. So in summary, preparing the teacher workforce is central to the CSU mission. The Chancellor's Office and the CSU campuses are working together to identify the most promising solutions to the state's current and projected teaching shortages, and the CSU has found that scholarships for future teachers, such as TEACH, student loan cancellation programs, such as APPLE, supervised alternative pathways, such as internships, and a blending of site-based and online teacher preparation, such as Cal State Teach, are especially high-impact strategies. So as CSU continues to advance these successful strategies, it's also exploring a broad range of other options that have been tried nationally, and the CSU considers teacher shortages an issue that it must address as a system, and its goal is to identify a range of approaches that have significant promise for the system. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much for joining us today. Senator Allen, any questions? Lots to think about, lots to chew on. Again, if you would leave your talking points with us, we'd appreciate it. And if there aren't any questions?
It's not even a question, it's just a comment. I mean, I served on the school board, and I just wanted to say that I know that your presentations reflect a tremendous amount of work trying to grapple with a really tough macro problem that we're going to be grappling with as well. And I just want to say that I appreciate everyone's hard work on this issue.
Thank you. Okay, we appreciate your time that you spent with us, and I would say wish you well, but we're going to think about this very hard because it is a growing problem here in this state, and we look forward to collaborating with you and some of your suggestions. And thank you very much for your time. Okay, is this the lineup for public comment? Okay, come forward. Thanks, guys. Let's keep it to 1 minute, please. Thank you for joining us.
I'll try 30 seconds.
Okay, good.
Whitney Staniford from First 5 California. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I want to urge the committee members to make sure that our early education and care teachers and caretakers aren't left out of this important conversation. It's been a very robust conversation, but I have not heard the mention of these teachers. I want to make sure that they are recognized as a crucial part of our teacher workforce and that they have the resources and supports they need to be highly skilled and well compensated. Finally, in light of past one-time budget investments in K-12 teacher preparation and professional development with significant one-time proposition funding in this year's budget, we should seize the opportunity to invest equivalent investments in early education workforce preparation as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Debbie Look on behalf of State Superintendent of Public Instruction Tom Torlakson. And recruiting and retaining an excellent teaching force is a top priority for the superintendent. Very concerned about the teacher shortage and really pleased to see the attention that's being paid to that right now. The superintendent agrees that there's a need for a multi-pronged approach, but we're really pleased to be working with Senator Pavley on SB 62, the Apple Loan Assumption Program, and really heartened to hear the very strong support for that from the many speakers today, and urge the committee to really consider that in the approach to addressing this issue. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. I'm Ron Rapp from the California Federation of Teachers. I want to thank you. I want to thank Senator Allen for taking on this very important issue. I'm a former teacher as well. I've taught in 3 states, 10 years, been in education for 33 years, 23 years in education policy around the country. You know, there are a number of reasons for a teacher shortage. It is both an issue of recruitment and retention. You know, you've heard testimony about hurdles to credentialing, low pay, portability, getting 5 years of credit if you move from district to district or state to state. I would add high stakes accountability and excessive testing as a reason for teachers to leave the classroom, leave the profession, lack of school and district leadership, deplorable working conditions in many of our schools. I've worked in several of them. One of the reasons why I moved on to other districts. Teacher-proof curriculum. Teaching is an art. It's both an art and a science, and teachers need to be able to be creative in the classroom. I think we're moving in that direction, but for years folks have tried to teacher-proof the curriculum, take away the creativity. You've heard about lack of support, mentoring, increased requirements from the legislature, the Department of Education, and attempts to take away the rights of teachers. And teachers are under attack. They continue to be under attack. Believe me, that causes many teachers to lose the profession, leave the profession, and also causes prospective teachers to consider other careers. So those are a number of reasons. It's a very complex issue. I'm here to say that the CFT is committed to ensuring a high-quality teacher is in every classroom, and look forward to working with the legislature to address this important issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good morning. Excuse me. I'm Liz Guillen with Public Advocates. We are starting to see some of the same teacher shortages that we saw when we filed Williams versus California in 2000. This problem cannot really be remedied by for students by focusing on one school district or a few school districts alone. The state is ultimately responsible for the quality of the system under our Constitution. We urge the legislature to take action and to move us in the direction of the state taking responsibility for the entire system. You've seen some of the, or you've heard some of the policy opportunities, and we have, including some of the ones in your background material, which we would support. I would also recommend to you the idea of keeping track of the system, something that was begun but has been defunded. It's hard to know how big the problem is if you don't have the information. We look forward to continuing working with you on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members. Nicole Rice, California Manufacturers and Technology Association. Also a member of the California Community College Strong Workforce Task Force. And here to urge the committee, as you begin looking at these issues to address teacher shortage, I would like to encourage you to not forget about those workforce development, those CTE teachers that we also have a need for. It has come to my attention over the last couple of years that there is not one industrial trade teacher in the pipeline. And California is looking to implement the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act to further renew its focus on career tech education and workforce development through the K through 14 system. We will need to have those teachers that are skilled and ready to be able to provide that instruction to the next generation of California's workers. One approach that was raised by the task force is to look at the pathway for retired workers who are coming out of industries in high need and high demand in California, and creating a pathway for those workers to be able to come into the teaching profession and be able to meet that gap and that shortage. So for those reasons, we were encouraged by the conversation today, but also urge you not to forget our career tech education teachers, and we look forward to working with you on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sal Villaseñor with the Association of California School Administrators. I'm going to have just a copy of a survey that we just did just in the last 4 weeks of our school districts, and out of the school districts of the state, 158 of them responded, and I wanted the committee to have this information. It shouldn't surprise any of us. It clearly shows that we have a shortage. We have a shortage not only in the teaching pool, but in the substitute pool, and again, focusing attention on the special ed classrooms in particular. And so to the extent that this committee continues to work forward on dealing with this major problem in our teaching ranks and in our pipeline, we have a short-term problem that needs to be addressed along with a long-term. We can't, at a time when the state finally allocated $500 million to provide staff development opportunities for our educators, school districts don't have substitutes available in many cases to allow their teachers to go out and get that professional development. And we don't have much time. That money's going to run out, I believe, in 3 years if we don't do something. So we have a short-term problem that we need to address, and we want to work with this legislature to help address that short-term problem and work with you on the long-term strategy and solution that you have. So thank you for having this hearing. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Any comments from anyone? Senator Allen, just you and I.
I just want to thank the chair for putting this together. I mean, very interesting discussion. Incredibly frustrating for me having, cast a number of very regretful votes as a school board member, laying people, all sorts of people off when we were in the middle of our, the crisis, and then here we are all of a sudden now facing a teacher shortage when I personally know a number of great young teachers in my own home school district that, left the profession because we kept giving them pink slips, and eventually they got sick of it. And now here we are figuring out ways how to bring them back. So it just speaks to the importance of our trying to find some more stability in financing, and then, of course, addressing all of the broader mentoring and programmatic solutions that have been discussed today. But I just really appreciate all the speakers for their very robust and interesting and engaging and thoughtful comments that we're working on legislation. Several of us are working on legislation to help respond to some of the things that have been raised today.
Thank you. Well, that concludes the hearing. Thank you all for your participation, and will we see them next Wednesday? February 3rd. Okay. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.